guys go. You're good to go.
All right, thank you, Sheila, and welcome everyone. My name is Peter Wysocki. I am with the City of Colorado Springs. Joining me today is Katie Sunderland. She's our Senior Affordable Housing Coordinator in our Community Development Division. And Steve Posey, who you might see his name on the screen, actually is our Community Development Manager. He's under the weather a little bit, so he's listening in. But Katie and I will go ahead and tag team this presentation here today. So why are we here, and why do we think this will be a good topic for discussion during the conference? And probably nothing new to most of you, as we're dealing with a little bit of a housing crisis throughout the state and probably throughout the country. But certainly in our area of Pikes Peak region in Colorado Springs, El Paso County, we continue to see a tremendous increase in cost of constructing multifamily housing in general, but the cost of building multifamily projects continues to increase. We've seen an 18% jump from 2021 to early 2022, and actually our 2022 numbers, updated numbers, are actually higher than the $271,000 per door. So it continues to be a concern for our region about how can City of Colorado Springs meet demand for attainable housing, and in this case specifically for income restricted affordable housing. Here is just a graphic representation of some of the issues we're facing in the city, where home prices continue to increase and outpace the moderate increase in household income. So not just the for sale homes are continuing to increase, but our multifamily market continues to increase as well. Till about 4 or 5 years ago, Colorado Springs area was seen as a very affordable alternative to the Denver metro area, and it certainly continues in some cases. But the housing affordability index is continually decreasing, and we're becoming much less competitive in that housing market. So what can we do as a city to help that? So simply put, housing costs continue to increase. Wages and salaries, although they are increasing, certainly not at the pace of our housing costs. We do see a tremendous demand on housing, and like many regions throughout the state and throughout the country, our housing supply is relatively low. We are now, I'm going to digress just a little bit from kind of the topic. There's a continued pressure in City of Colorado Springs to build more housing units, both in greenfield areas as well as infill. And we're striking a pretty good balance with that, but nonetheless, that continues to be an issue for our housing market. So I thought it would be important to cover the background of why we implemented a fee rebate program, part of the presentation that Katie will concentrate on. And like many cities throughout the country, our comprehensive plan, Plan COS, identifies attainable housing and affordable housing as one of the top priorities. Subsequent to Plan COS, we have adopted Home COS, that is a affordable housing specific housing plan on how we can reach Mayor's challenge to build 1,000 new affordable housing units per year. And I just see that we kind of switch some words around here, but affordable housing in this context with a capital A really means income restricted housing, housing that is designated for individuals and families that make 80% or less of the area median income. Our actual discussion about housing affordability stretches to housing, attainable housing for families and individuals that make more than 80% as well, kind of that missing middle. But today's presentation concentrates on affordable housing, as we call it with a capital A, truly affordable housing intended for low to moderate income families. Through over the last 2 or 3 years, as this discussion really has hit sort of the forefront in our community, there is a community-based, a local advocacy group that was formed called Affordable Housing Collaborative. It's really just a group of citizens and stakeholder organizations working together to really change the narrative about affordable housing, what it is and what it isn't, and what are some of the impediments to constructing affordable housing. Housing affordability in general and the missing middle housing is a concern to our chamber and EDC, Economic Development Corp, and our Housing and Building Association. They obviously see housing attainability as a pretty important factor and ingredient to be competitive in economic development and how we compete with other cities, not just along the Front Range, but also across the country, quite frankly, across the world. We see that as a very important factor. Like I said earlier, we have been seen as an affordable alternative to the Denver metro area, and we're not as affordable as we used to be. So it is a growing concern. Where do we have, as employers look at locating in Colorado Springs and the Pikes Peak region, where do the employees live, and can they afford to live in this area? Pretty important economic development factor. And quite frankly, the city of Colorado Springs, we're not in the business of building housing. So what can we do? What can we do beyond regulatory incentives and simply administering federal grants that we receive from HUD? Every time, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before, anytime cities adopt new fees, either application fees or impact fees, specific purpose fees, there's always that argument, well, this will just increase the cost of building housing. This will just increase the cost of building affordable housing, or those fees will be seen as just yet another impediment or disincentive to build affordable housing in our communities. We've, over the number of years, we have adopted a number of impact fees or specific purpose fees. And generally speaking, there has not been support to exempt affordable housing projects from those fees. Simply put, if there's for example, a park improvement fee, we feel that the demand on parks is the same, whether it's a market-based or market rate project or an affordable housing project. So we do not have special exemptions or automatic exemptions from fees, from impact fees for affordable housing projects. We, of course, like many cities, have evaluated and explored the possibility of inclusionary zoning of affordable housing fees or impact fees that will be paid by subdivisions or even commercial projects. Those types of programs have generally not been supported by our elected leadership. So what are we doing? So obviously the city is in the process of adopting a complete rewrite of our zoning and subdivision code. I believe we've made some leaps and bounds to have a little more flexible zoning that would make development of multifamily housing and affordable housing a little easier, not jeopardizing quality, but certainly being more mixed use. How we approach our single family residential zoning, as well as how we are proposing to allow multifamily zoning or multifamily development as a use by right in non-residential districts or non-residential commercial districts. We obviously are supportive of affordable housing projects, multifamily projects in general, a matter of our emphasis on infill and redevelopment. We have an expedited or fast track review process. We call it rapid response. So affordable housing projects rise to the same level of a fast track review as high profile primary employer type projects. So we as a matter of public policy have the determination that those projects are a top priority to the city, and we go through a faster review process for them. We of course are entitlement city for CDBG grants and others, so we continue to allocate a vast majority of our HUD grants towards affordable housing projects and projects that quite frankly benefit other construction and operations of projects related to homelessness and shelters. So it's really all encompassing, not just multifamily. We support the issuance of private activity bonds. We support applications at the state level for low income tax credits. Pretty sure most of you are familiar with those. And I think something that brought the affordable housing discussion to light and as a priority is a continued conversation and advocacy. Not only is that advocacy coming from city staff and from our elected leadership, but from other organizations like the Affordable Housing Collaborative, like the Housing and Building Association, like the Chamber and EDC, and many, many others. And some of those larger groups have really joined forces to carry that conversation and be advocates for attainable and affordable housing. So what else can we do? We felt like there's more since we've continually hear that cost of doing business with the city is getting a little more expensive. Whether that's good or bad, the city of Colorado Springs recognizes that there's impacts from development, and we do have police and fire impact fees. We do have a parkland dedication ordinance that requires residential development to dedicate land for neighborhood or community parks, or pay an in lieu fee if parkland cannot be dedicated by a project. In the case of multifamily apartment type projects, obviously dedicated land on site is not really a practical option, so they pay fees. But we want to make sure that those specific funds are made whole. So we are, to what I alluded to earlier, did not want to automatically exempt multifamily affordable housing projects be exempt from those specific fees. So we came up with the idea of development fee rebate program. And this is where I'll turn it over to Katie, and she'll go over the program details. But before we do that, I also want to acknowledge that Colorado Springs Utilities participation in this process as well. They're on an enterprise agency, an enterprise fund of the city of Colorado Springs, and they provide all services, utility services. So water, wastewater, electricity, and gas. So they've been a very important partner in this process as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie.
Thanks, Peter. So I'd love to just explain our development fee rebate program in a little bit more detail and the evaluate projects. We are taking a look at the full scope of fees that are charged to our different multifamily fees, our stormwater fees, parkland fees, what Peter had mentioned earlier, our utility infrastructure, so tap fees, departments, and then our building permits. And so we're encompassing all of those fees into the rebate. Multifamily project to apply for this program. We do an processes that happen through development. And so we'll either see increased scoring development process moves along. What will happen is the project will go through their financial closing. The developers will send in their are paid, and we will issue them a rebate based on the score that they were by all the agencies, and so they're made whole. Sorry, I see that I'm cutting out. Yes, for some reason this side of I'm going to keep going, Sheila. Okay. So all the fees are collected. And the intent of the rebate going back into the project at that 6-week mark is so that hey, okay, I will turn off my video. Sorry about that. Is that any better? Hopefully. Those rebates about 6 weeks after the financial closing, pay off construction interest. We're really trying to get that okay, you can next slide, Peter. Developed based on community need for affordable housing in Colorado. Okay.
Hey, Katie, can you either come to my office or connect to the internet?
Come down to your office real quick.
All right, she's back.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, So we looked at a bunch of our existing master plans for our community and for our different departments and divisions and different community agencies to come up with the scoring criteria. And what we really were trying to do was say, okay, what are the gaps in our community? Where are our needs at as a community for affordable housing? And so this is how we came up with the scoring criteria. You can see the first two categories, sorry, I ran over here a little bit. The first two categories are our heaviest and most weighted sections. Then they're really based on the AMI level, which AMI, for those who don't know, is area median income. And so we really are incentivizing low AMI units. So anything under 50% AMI is really desirable in our community. We have quite a few 60% projects going in, not saying that we don't award points for 60% projects, but it's actually only 1 point out of 10. So any of those projects that are including these lower income units are receiving higher points on this scale. We also really want to make sure that we are capturing our ongoing affordability. So most of our LIHTC projects, this is built in, but we wanted to be able to use this program for affordable housing projects that might not necessarily have those LIHTC tax credits in it, but that they're able to reach some of these attainable and affordable levels and only have maybe a 5-year land use restriction placed upon them. So they would receive points, but not the full 10. The third criteria in here is 1 additional point above every unit above Section 504 requirements. And Section 504 is kind of a HUD specific term, but essentially what that means is there's 8 ADA requirements for units, and that the number of units that have to be fully ADA accessible. And what we're saying is we'll incentivize you for a point for each unit above the base threshold that you're able to include. Our next population is setting aside units for special needs populations, again, a HUD specific term, but that is those experiencing homelessness, persons living with AIDS, migrant workers, the elderly, those who are victims of domestic violence. And then specifically for our community, if you are reserving units for veterans and our homeless veterans, we are really interested in giving you additional points in this area because we have such a high veteran concentration in Colorado Springs, in addition to our mayor signing on to I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what it's called. What's the ending veteran homelessness? It's the incentive to end veteran homelessness within communities. So bringing that down to functional zero. So really trying to house our veteran population. We are also trying to make sure that our affordable units are accessible and able to be lived in by multiple different populations, not just those with physical disabilities, but different types of disabilities as well, like visual and hearing impairments. And so we're incentivizing the use of universal design. And so right now I'm doing focus groups with users of different abilities in our community. We have the Colorado School of Deaf and Blind in our city. And so a lot of their graduates end up staying in our community. And so really focusing in on what does that population really need in each of these units to make these affordable units desirable for them to live in. I'm also doing focus groups with other folks in our community to really hone in on these different criteria. The next scoring criteria is alignment with our city planning documents, which are our departmental documents, as well as our comprehensive plan and home COS, which is our attainable and affordable housing plan. The second to last criteria is located in a high opportunity neighborhood. And so what we're doing is taking an objective look at where these affordable housing projects are located in our community and assigning them a score. And so the Child Opportunity Index is a replacement for the Enterprise 360 score, which I think some of you might be familiar with. So the Enterprise 360 score and the Child Opportunity score, what they do is take a look at the health outcomes of different areas, what the educational attainment is, how long it takes for residents to get to work, what does early childhood education look like, and really takes a comprehensive look and understanding at different parts of our community and says, there is a high likelihood that this is a high opportunity area. This is a high opportunity area for not only children, but for adults to thrive in. And so if our affordable housing projects are located in that area, we give them a 0 through 4 score based on how they're scoring on that objective criteria. And then the last criteria is incorporation of our Colorado Springs Utilities Conservation Programs measures. And so what they did is come up with essentially what we refer to as a menu of options. So including R24 insulation in the walls. If you have a higher efficiency water heater, you'll get a point. So there's a bunch of different types of energy criteria that developers can take a look at and can include in their projects. It's not working. Oh, okay. So I'm going to take you guys through an existing project that we have that's it's in design phase right now. We're quickly approaching their financial closing, but it's called Paloma Gardens. This is a project that's being developed by the Volunteers of America. So it's a exclusively senior project. It will have a total of 176 new units in it. This bottom left-hand corner kind of boomerang shape is an existing project that will be rehabbed. And then this upper right building is a brand new construction. And so we are taking a look at this project collectively as one project, since it will be a renovation and new construction, and they are turning it into a full campus. So you can see some of the great renderings that they have. This is really going to be a great asset for our senior communities with lots of walking trails, outdoor areas. They incorporate heavy programmatic elements into this project too. And so us, just as any other community in Colorado, we're seeing the silver tsunami come in and really are looking for quite a few new senior units. So this is a really great asset to our community. So right now, this project is scoring incredibly well. They actually are eligible for an 80% rebate. And so we'll just take a look at how they're doing that. So they're receiving a 7 out of 10 for the number of units that are below 50% AMI. So this is an incredibly low income property, which is amazing, especially for our seniors on fixed income. They have a 30-year land use restriction. And so we'll have 30 years of ongoing affordability that we can guarantee. They included 3 additional fully accessible units above the minimum criteria. All of their units are set aside for elderly. They've incorporated multiple elements of universal design in the project. They are an infill project. They're adjacent to a bus stop and really close to a bike lane, but are not within a quarter mile of a park. And so they received a 6 out of 8 in our departmental planning alignment section. Unfortunately, this project is located in a very low childhood opportunity level. So they scored a 0 out of 4 on this, but are fully maximizing our CSU conservation features, so receiving a 6. So they actually are at a 41 out of 50, which is an 80% rebate. The really great thing that we've seen with this project and with this program in general is we do a baseline score when these projects apply to our office. And based off of that baseline, we then talk to the development community or the developers and say, this is where you're at, this is where you're scoring. So when they came in, they were scoring a 60% rebate. And we said, if you include 3 additional units of fully accessible, if you include 3 additional fully accessible units and incorporate 2 more elements of these conservation features, you're able to go from a 60% up to the 80%. And so that's exactly what they did. And we've seen this improvement on almost every one of our projects that has gone through the rebate program. We have projects that are doing MOAs with some of our local nonprofits to set aside units for homeless veterans. We've seen elements of universal design incorporated. There's just been a myriad of different ways that projects have really exceeded our expectations, and this program has really exceeded our expectations, and that the projects can be more tailored to what our community really needs. it's been an incredible outcome, and something that we were hoping would happen, but didn't really anticipate that it was going to be as well received and as beneficial as it has been. So just so we can take a look at the numbers here for what this project is actually receiving. So Paloma Garden, we're estimating that their total cost for development fees, that includes their utility fees and all of their entitlement reviews, is going to be a little bit over $500,000. So with that 80% rebate, you can see that we'll be rebating $225,000 from the city's entitlement review, and then an additional $242,000 from Colorado Springs Utilities. So that math equates to the developer will be paying $116,000 of those fees, and we'll be rebating them $467,000. So as Peter said at the beginning, we're not waiving these fees. These fees are paid up front, but we will be rebating that $467,000 essentially right after the start of construction to be able to finance different elements of the project. So how are we funding this? Which is always the question. So Colorado Springs Utilities has an annual allocation of $2 million that they are contributing to this project and to this rebate program, to rebate programs across all, like our entire affordable housing spectrum. And so we work with them to gather their receipts for infrastructure and TAP rebates or TAP costs, and then we rebate those. Our office issues private activity bonds, which we charge an issuer fee on, and so 100% of those issuer fees are going into this rebate program, which is about $100,000 a year. Additionally, Peter has started to waive quite a few of our fees, in addition to reduce those fees, if our entitlement review fees, if they are for affordable housing projects, which is reducing our overall entitlement costs. And then we have also received different donations from philanthropic entities, from private individuals, and different grant sources. So we have quite a few different layers of this lasagna that are coming together to fund this program. And so why are we doing this? Really, what we are seeing in our community is a huge spike in the number of affordable units that are being constructed in Colorado Springs. Right now, like 20% of our multifamily activity is affordable housing units, which is incredible. And we also have been really fortunate to be the recipient of multiple tax credit awards, really starting in 2019. So these are certificates of occupancy. And right now I can tell you that we have more than this 500 units under construction that will be getting COs in 2023. So this graph is just almost exponential. So we're really trying to be a developer friendly, affordable housing friendly community, as we struggle, as many other communities are struggling, to keep workforce and keep residents housed in their communities. And so, I mean, truly, we're just offering up anything we can to keep these affordable housing developments coming back. So if you have any questions about the program, you are welcome to send them to me. My contact information is on this slide. And if there's any questions, Peter and I can answer those.
Katie, I did have a request if you could go back over the stuff at the very beginning on the first one or two slides that people missed when I was setting out.
Sorry. Was it this? So, okay.
Thank
Yes, yeah, I'll do this quickly. So, okay. This first slide was really talking about, this is what our fees are for our development review charges. So we charge a entitlement review fee, stormwater fee, parkland and school fees, which is basically what the impact is going to be on parks and our schools. Our utility infrastructure, which is our TAP fees. We have a public safety impact fee, which is police and fire fees, essentially just saying increased people means increased services, and then building permits. And so the rebate program covers all of these fees. And so we total these at the end, and then the development team will submit all of their receipts to us, and so that we can rebate based on what the actual expenses paid were. So the process of
the rebate program is we'll go through the evaluation, which you saw with the scoring criteria. We'll offer them a preliminary award saying you are eligible for a 60% rebate. And then we will go back and forth with the development teams saying, okay, if you increase the number of conservation measures that you're including in your project, and you give us additional ADA units, you can then get up to an 80% rebate. So it's a very collaborative process with our development teams to see where we can get them to improve the quality of their project for our community. And then after they are financially closed and all of the fees have been collected, we then issue the rebate about 6 weeks after financial closing, so they can go to pay off construction interest or start truly paying for that construction cost and leverage a lower construction loan. Sheila, was I cutting out here?
I think so at the beginning.
Okay. So the first category that we are using to score is the percent of units reserved for 50% AMI and below. So we're really incentivizing our low income units. So we want to see those 30 to 50% rents, 30 to 50% area median income rents. We do still award points for fully 60% projects, but it's just 1 out of those 10 points. So you can see how quickly you would rack up these points if you had lower AMI units within the project. Do you think that's enough information, Sheila, or should I keep going?
I think so. If it isn't, if you put your question in the Q&A box, we'll let her know.
And I can't see the Q&A box either, Sheila, so if there's any questions.
No questions thus far. If you have any questions, don't forget to put them in the Q&A box within Zoom, or you can put them in the Whova app. Do you and Peter have a summary that you'd like to talk about, some highlights or anything more in depth that you just presented?
The one thing I would just add, the one thing I would just add, the important part of this program is, there's 2 important parts. One, for example, if a community has any type of impact fee, those fees are collected. They are still go to those earmarked accounts. So like, for example, if projects we collect parkland dedication fee, the parkland dedication fund is made whole. So we're not removing or depleting or decreasing those specific funds. The same goes for, obviously, utility connection fees for our police and fire, impact fees that are not, we just adopted them, so they're actually not effective until the first of the year, but the same premise applies, that those funds are made whole. So we're now making a determination or waiving those fees and recognizing that the impacts on parks or on public safety are basically, we're treating those projects the same as market rate. And then the second part is that the fee is set up to, I guess, reward performance, if you will. We are not, the program does not rebate them when you have your planning approval, or if you go to a zone change or a conditional use permit, whatever type of entitlement early on in the process you receive, that is not enough. You actually need to apply for a building permit and pay the fees, and then submit the receipts. So sometimes we all have it, right? Where projects are approved, they go through the planning process, development review process, great, but they either don't get built or don't get built for many years. So we set it up where you actually have to have a building permit and receipts in hand for us to rebate that. So I think those are very important aspects. And I guess just in summary, again, this is just one way that we felt would be a good approach, and it really targets. It's the fee rebate program is an incentive itself, but within the program, there's incentives to provide high quality, energy efficient, accessible units that target the lower end of the low moderate income families, and basically in areas of the city that affordable housing is most appropriate. No, I think that's all we have.
Well, you do have one question. How is the Planning and Development Services Department absorbing the impact of the reduced fees?
That's a great question. Well, we're a general fund funded department, so the fees we collect, we don't get to keep anyway. But that said, the funds, the monies to fund the program will come from different sources. So we're not reducing the revenue or the budget that we will receive in coming years. So there will not be an impact to the department's budget.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there? Sorry, phone's ringing, of course. Any other questions? Be sure and put them in the chat, but if not, we'll go ahead and end a little early today. I thank you for presenting for us. The recording should be up within 24 hours. And if you have any other questions for our panelists, you can send them emails through the Whova app or look at their emails on the app and send them through that way. So Peter, Katie, thank you for everything. And
Thank
you guys go about and have your day.